Okay, so as we enter the next section, I will note that the Taoist Tai G2 diagram of the let me see, of the utmost extremities. So it's a diagram of the utmost extremities. That's what the Tai G2 is, right? Corresponds very well to Jung's exposition on Abraxas, as is well detailed in the 7 Sermons of the Dead. Possibly in the next lecture, and not possibly, I will place these ideas side by side with an intelligible diagram based upon the 7 Sermons information, as the mystery of Abraxas is almost paramount to understanding Jungian ideology, individuation, and many other spiritual and psychological treatises, especially those of individuals that wish to lead people such as ourselves into a ripe understanding of this current aeon we are now experiencing, such as Nietzsche, such as Aleister Crowley, you know what I mean? And once again, I'm probably committing social suicide, but it is what it is, because I'm going to say what I got to say. For instance, also too, an individual like Charles Manson, the following that this dude had behind him, if you get into some of the history of his life, was absolutely insane. Was absolutely insane. And it just shows that by understanding the principles of Abraxas, for instance, right? By understanding how you relate to the principle or of the energy of Abraxas, and that you are Abraxas in this world, there's a lot within your potential world or within your potential realm of influence that you can pull and that you can bring towards you, and then how you can also link to others, and then how you can also bring power into your individual being as well too. So there are a lot of powerful takeaways that you can get from this idea once again. But what we're going to do is get into several of Jung's writings from various sources on the idea of Abraxas, which should be very interesting and will be. So without further ado, and some of these are from the black books here. So this is Carl Jung here. The death of Christ took no suffering away from the world, but his life has taught us much, namely that it pleases the one God if the individual lives his own life against the power of Abraxas. This is the next one. You are the suffering heart of your one star God, who is Abraxas in this world. And I wrote a footnote here. The star is the fixed sign in the east, depicted as card number 17, the star in the tarot, and is representative of air, or fixed air. The dawning of human consciousness is what it represents as well, which is a milestone occurrence that we are now experiencing in a fuller sense in this age of Aquarius. So this is the next saying. But you have in you the one God, the wonderfully beautiful and kind, the solitary, star-like, unmoving, fixed. Once again, air is Aquarius, fixed air, okay, in the zodiac. He who is older and wiser than the Father, he who has a safe hand, who leads you among all the darknesses and death and death scares of dreadful Abraxas. So the next one, as a god, you are the great Abraxas in your world, but as a man, you are the heart of the one God who appears to his world as the great Abraxas, the feared, the powerful, the donor of madness, he who dispenses the water of life, which is the aqua vitae, the liquid stone of the philosophers, right? The spirit of the tree of life, the daemon of the blood. Blood is linked with fire, okay? The death bringer. And I think there's a footnote. Yes, I did write a footnote here. So I put on here, and I'm actually going to put this up on the screen, CATU, or tarot card 6 and 15. Adam and Eve, and pay close attention to the trees, okay? Pay attention to Adam and Eve, pay attention to the trees that are shown here. The tree of life is the symbol that grows by aggregation, the formation of things, opposite things, into unified clusters, right? This is a left brain attribute. Blood and water are linked in baptism and was practiced blood baptism in the Torabolium of Mithraism. Blood is associated with the element of fire. The linking of blood and fire and water is both calcinatio and solutio imagery in alchemy. The reference to fire, desire, and the collective unifying and desirous aspects within the emotional element of water imply libido and eros. This is a symbolic fire that consumes and then goes out, but operating on an eternal principle is never gone forever. This is a right brain aspect. So you're seeing unification of hemispherical qualities within your psyche, within the idea of this deity, okay? So pain and disappointment fill the world of Abraxas with coldness. All your life's warmth slowly sinks into the depths of your soul, into the midpoint of man, where the far blue starlight of your one God glimmers. The works of Abraxas are to be fulfilled, for consider that in your world you yourself are Abraxas, and force your creature to fulfill your work. Here where you are, let's see, here where you, so here where you are, I guess, so live life, do not flee Abraxas, provided that he compels you and you can recognize his necessity. In one sense, I say to you, do not fear him, do not love him. In another sense, I say, fear him, love him. He is the life of the earth. And I put a little footnote above that, putting he is then autochthonic. And we explained earlier what autochthonic means. It means like born from rocks, trees, the earth itself, an indispensable and permanent part of the earth, basically, right? Okay. And that says enough. So I put a little mark on the side of the he is the life of the earth comment. Refer to the description of autochthon, which I did here, and see PIE root DHGHEM, and I'm going to throw that up on the screen because that was very important. So from the American Heritage Dictionary on this one, Degem, earth, the word bridegroom is in there. For example, the parable of the 5 wise virgins and the 5 foolish brides, okay? The word chameleon, the word homo in Latin, man, okay? Human, chthonic, which is the one we're dealing with directly, autochthon, directly, okay? Also see DEKM, Proto-Indo-European, which is 10. Also 10 equals earth, the number of the virgin. And also 10 in Kabbalah is Malkuth, the earth, okay? Or the virgin bride of Christ, okay? And that is what they call Malkuth, and Malkuth 10 is equivalent to 1. Malkuth is in Kether, which is 1, and Kether is in Malkuth, okay? So that's an idea of God and man being equivalents, equals, and you see that idea being exposed in these writings about Abraxas. So 10 equals the philosopher's stone, the rebis, the divine hermaphrodite, which Abraxas seems to embody attributes of in unified opposition, okay? So the more you free yourself from him, Abraxas, the more you approach death. Hold on real quick. Okay, so I skipped one. I, your soul, am your mother who tenderly and frightfully surrounds you, your nourisher and corrupter. I prepare good things and poisons for you. I am your intercessor with Abraxas. I teach you the arts that protect you from Abraxas. Now, who is this I now, since it's something apart from Abraxas? Listen, for example, this is the anima and also we can say the limbic functions, paying attention to one's emotions and what they indicate can be this thing, because the limbic center is a more feminine center, if we will. Okay, hunter gatherer. It's also emotional. Okay, and it's the cup, we can say, also in the tarot deck, and that cup has both poison and the cure inside of it. Okay, as does Mercurius. It's the mother who tenderly and frightfully surrounds you. So you get those feelings of, oh man, the feelings of fright. Maybe I shouldn't do this, based on past ideas and da 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 in the limbic center. Okay, so and it's an intercessor. And I personally went through the intercessory experience just recently, doing that MMA fight and everything leading up to it, all the stresses and everything else, you know what I mean? But dealing with that, with speaking to the emotions, speaking to the anxieties and different things of that nature, linked directly with that which is feeding it the anxieties, which is the basal ganglia center. And it says, hey, basal ganglia, you got to get on board. Amygdala, you got to get on board. And guess what? You're going to link to something higher in me, the neocortex, and all of you guys are going to be on board to keep me alive through any situation at that point. You know, when you decide to fight, that's the main thing. But that limbic center can fill you with so much fright that you flight. Okay, so something to think about, and that's why I like Mr. McLean. I think Paul McLean was his name, the individual that put out the Triune brain system of understanding the mind and the way it works, the brain, the way it works, because by understanding it, you can understand certain spiritual philosophies as well, though, too. I mean, it works in that way as well, though, too. Okay, so anyways, the more you free yourself from him, Abraxas, the more you approach death, since he is the life of the universe. But he is also universal death. Therefore, you will fall victim to him again, not in life, but in dying. So remember him. Do not worship him, but also do not imagine that you can flee him, since he is all around you. Think about what I just aforementioned earlier about the limbic system and the way that it will try to seduce you with emotions of fear to get away from a calling or to get away from something that you even must do. Okay? For fear of death. Maybe in that cup of death or that cup of poison, verily, maybe your life may be in that wine there. So only by living life can you free yourself from it. Okay? So live it to such a degree that it benefits you. To the degree that you live it, you also fall victim to the power of Abraxas and his dreadful deceptions. But to the same degree, the star god in you gains in longing and power. In that, the fruit of deception and human disappointment falls to him. So you didn't want to obey, you resisted, but you should not resist any humiliation. You should accept the injustice, since Abraxas wants to knead you into people like yeast into flour. And I wrote a footnote on this because there's something that this links to. This is the idea also of the potter deity Khnemu of the Egyptians. I'll throw a picture of that up there. Originally the god of the source of the Nile. Since annual flooding of the Nile, and remember Nilo in the Greek equals 365, so this is very pertinent. The annual flooding of the Nile brought with it silt and clay, and its water brought life to its surroundings. He was presumed to be the creator of the bodies of human children, while he made on the potter's wheel, which he made on the potter's wheel from clay and placed them in their mother's wombs. He was later thought to have been had created by molding all the other deities, and held the title of divine potter and lord of created things from himself. See Isaiah 64 verse 8 and Genesis 2:7. I'll throw those up on the screen while I read the rest of these quotations here. So Carl Jung wrote here, I need a new shadow since I have recognized the terrible Abraxas and have drawn myself back from him. The cold grew and my star blazed brighter. Remember, and I put a note here, remember pain and disappointment fill the world of Abraxas with coldness. Then all of life's warmth introvert. They are then felt within the midpoint, the depths of the soul. This is where the far blue starlight of your one God glimmers, as Jung said. And this was read earlier, okay? So that links to that statement there. What are you thinking of? He is the Abraxas of the earth. No one bestows joy on the earthly ones as he does. He is the hermaphrodite. And they're talking about Mercury, who for joy unites what is separate. He makes you strong and happy on earth. He preserves the life and happiness of men. How could you grow without him? You poor fools, if you don't know how to serve the gods, at least serve yourselves. So further on in the discussion, Jung commented, first, God is felt traditionally, conventionally, then dynamically, then felt into humanity as magical effect of the person. But this results in a God beyond good and evil. It leads to the devil as war. It is a primitive thought. Everything alien is magical, also medieval. And this shows us that, MLL, Melavi, shows us that she experiences God as a subjective dynamis. And forgive me, because I couldn't read the printing on this thing for the name of the person, but there's a female that is demonstrating something here. She shows us that she experiences God as a subjective dynamis, and between men it is the personal. A God beyond good and evil questions the human relationship. A God beyond good and evil is not Christian either. The Christian is only an etiquette. If she wants to continue consequently, she would come between the poles. At the end, she takes the view according to which she turns into a Christ herself. So that refers to, first, God is felt traditionally, conventionally, then dynamically, then felt into humanity as a magical effect on the person, okay? At the end, she turns basically into a Christ herself in her mind, right? This is already analytical. The Christians become Christiani, not Christoi. Jung's comments concerning a God beyond good and evil converge with the conception of Abraxas that he was elaborating in these entries. The number of gods and devils is as innumerable as the hosts of stars. Each star is a god, and each space that a star fills is a devil. But the empty fullness of the whole is the Pleroma. Abraxas is the effect of the whole. Only the ineffective opposes him. And I wrote a footnote to this saying, Crowley stated fully, every man and woman is a star. A star is an individual identity. It radiates energy. It is a point of view. Its object is to become whole by establishing relations with other stars. Each such relation is an event. It is an act of love under will. Abraxas is called the one star God. Okay. So also, I put another footnote based upon what I just read that Crowley stated, of what Crowley stated fully, okay? One can only, by living freely and genuinely, free oneself from Abraxas, as Jung stated, right? One can only do so in the face of injustices, and also victory. One obviously being easier to take than the other, both being equally important, maybe the former more valuable than the latter. Okay. So the next statement: this is a God you knew nothing about. We call him Abraxas. He is even more indefinite than God and the devil. Nothing stands opposed to him but the ineffective. Hence, his effective nature unfolds itself freely. Abraxas stands above God and devil. He is improbable probability, that which takes unreal effect. If the Pleroma had an essence, Abraxas would be its manifestation. The human has fallen from you. You have come closer to the stars. The kingdom of what is to come will open. Let silence enter, the silence of eternity, since all paths, even the most winding, lead to the valley of silence. You unite yourself with Abraxas through me. The soul is what's being spoken of me. First you give me your heart, and then you live through me. I am the bridge to Abraxas. Thus the tree of light arises in you, and you become the tree of light, and Phanes arises from you. You have anticipated, but not understood this. At the time, you had to separate from Abraxas to become individual, opposed to the drive. Now you become one with Abraxas. This happens through me. You cannot do this. Therefore, you must remain with me. Unification with the physical Abraxas occurs through the human woman, but that with the spiritual Abraxas occurs through me. That is why you must be with me. Now, this whole idea here kind of gets into the idea that there are two axes, if you will, there are two axes, if you will, of spirits, if you will, of psychological application. One dealing with individuality, being alone, and then also one dealing with going out and seeking communion amongst the groups. Okay, and those ideas are what are being spoken about here. And when it talks about unification with the physical Abraxas occurs through the human woman, once again, we can kind of look at the limbic system again, because the limbic system deals with how we deal with others in society, others socially around us, with society at large as well, though, too. You know what I mean? So that's opposed to the more spiritual unity with Abraxas, which is of a more individual nature, you know. And in the second lecture, what I'm going to turn around and do is get into showing you that on in a diagrammatical form, because I basically, like I said, broke down the 7 sermons to the dead, skimmed a gang of notes that correspond to this lecture and will correspond to the next lecture as well, though, too, based upon the 7 sermons of the dead, that will kind of give you a more visual approach to the idea. Okay, so continuing here, if God no longer understands me, I must recede into remoteness from God. I must protect myself from his loving vengeance. Remoteness from God is procession along the 4 false ways. It is crucifixion. It is Abraxas. The 4 false ways are being one with the outer worldly being, and being one with the soul, being one with splendor, and then being one with the shadow. Okay, so the next reading here is on February 29th, 1916, Tony Wolfe noted, sexuality equals collective general feelings in the unconscious. Abraxas head lion as danger or cosmic thoughts. More conventional, as, let's see, general, collective, and cosmic intellectual thoughts. Unconscious is like, I guess you could say, Abraxas, tail, and serpent, sexuality as danger, okay? Sexuality, I wrote a note here. Sexuality, spirituality, and psychology go hand in hand, all right? So let me see here too. And I also wrote a key footnote on my personal observations of the parts of the body of Abraxas, and I'll throw another picture up of Abraxas as a key to this, okay? And this is through the lens of the triune brain theory, because you can actually use that theory and the descriptions, if you will, of the 3 levels to understand certain things, okay? Especially things of psychological, spiritual nature, okay? So, number 1, the head of Abraxas is a rooster, thus solar, okay? This deals with the neocortex, okay? The body holding a whip and shield or sun. And this alludes to protection and also is used to drive the solar chariot. The horses pulling a chariot are libido creatures and are also symbolisms of the mother. This this mother as a protector can be said to be the mother who tenderly and frightfully surrounds you, your nourisher and corrupter who prepares good things and poison for you. These are aspects of the cup and of Mercury. She is your intercessor with Abraxas and teaches you the arts that protect you from Abraxas. The whip is also the weapon of the will, and the shield represents deity as a defense. The limbic system can be linked to here, okay? The serpentine legs are the way it moves. Abraxas, quite obviously, right? But Abraxas is the mover unmoved. The basal ganglia does this and is doing this as it takes care of automatic bodily functions and also automatic bodily reactions. So sometimes we can move and be put into motion because of outer stimuli without even wanting to move, without even wanting to go there. If somebody throws a punch at you to your head, 9 times out of 10, if you see it coming from the periphery, you're gonna go up like this, you know. So it's something to think about, and this is a way to kind of understand how the triune brain theory can be used to decipher certain elements of deities, pictures of deities, or even symbols, to understand what part of the psyche are they speaking of, you know. So continuing forward here, what the God speaks is life, what the devil speaks is death, but Abraxas speaks that hallowed and accursed word that is at once life and death. Abraxas produces truth and lying. It is the same good and evil, light and darkness. It is the same word and in the same act. You should worship only one God. The other gods are unimportant. Abraxas is to be feared. Therefore, it was a deliverance when he separated himself from me. You do not need to seek him. He will find you, just like Eros. So he gives joy and peace. Since he is beyond death and beyond what is subject to change, he is no servant and no friend of Abraxas. He himself is in Abraxas, but not unto you, but in himself and his distant world. Since you yourself are a god who lives in faraway realms and who renews himself in his ages and creations and peoples, just as powerful to them as Abraxas is to you. Now, some would say, man, this is some heretical stuff. You're saying that human beings are gods and da-da-da-da-da-da. And, well, I'm going to throw up the Bible verse that says, I said ye are gods, and all of ye are children of the Most High, but ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. I'm going to put that up there, and that's coming straight out of the King James Version Bible. And the thing is if God made man in his own image, okay, at the end of the day, it's not like he made man in his own image and just separated him off like, oh, you're a separate thing, you know. Those essences that went into the creation of man, scientifically proven that man in his composition is made up of the same thing as stardust, okay. There's the only difference is the level of distinction, okay. So continuing forward without talking so much more, you are the suffering heart of your one star God, who is Abraxas to his world. Therefore, because you are the heart of your God, aspire towards him, love him, live for him, fear Abraxas, who rules over the human world. Okay, so we get into the next page here. The one God thus delivers himself from the suffering of the earth, into which his eros plunged him. Since when the one God saw the earth, he saw its procreation, and forgot that a world was already given to him in which he was Abraxas. I mean, talk about forgetting what you are. You know what I mean? It is said that in the I think it either the Greek or Roman ideology is like, when souls go to the realm of the dead, before they're reincarnated into the world, they drink of the river of forgetfulness, so that when they come back to this world, they don't have any recollection or knowledge of the things of the past, of who they were, how they died, how they lived. And if you think about the successions, let's say if reincarnation is something for real, okay, the successions of reincarnation and the successions of forgetfulness, of forgetting of past lives, okay, that is what this last track that I read here would in some way allude to, okay. But the freeing of man from the power of Abraxas does not follow man's withdrawing from the power of Abraxas, because no one can pull away from it, but through subjugating himself to it. Even Christ had to subjugate himself to the power of Abraxas, and Abraxas killed him in a gruesome manner. Okay, so I wrote a footnote to this. The Taoist idea of Wu Wei should be noted here, as its philosophy intertwines with how one must approach Abraxas. By achieving the state of Wu Wei, one can unify and order the entire world and find their place in the cosmos. The practice of Wu Wei would spontaneously align one to the love of the Wei. For example, the divine spiritual principle. One could come into this true alignment without rigorously trying to attain virtue, but rather by allowing virtue to realize itself. This was the doctrine of non-effort, or as I have heard it called, doing without doing. One text says of Wu Wei, there is a numinous mind naturally residing within. One moment it goes, the next it comes, and no one is able to conceive of it. Diligently clean out its lodging place, and its vital essence will naturally arrive. Still your attempts to imagine or conceive of it. Relax your efforts to reflect on and control it. Be reverent and diligent, and its vital essence will naturally stabilize. Grasp it and don't let it go. When a properly aligned mind resides within you, the myriad things will be seen in their proper perspective. Remember, as pointed out in one of my previous lectures, uncultivated, this is the animus or Hun energy, referred to as the numinous mind earlier in this text that we're reading here, right? The Yang principle, which rises upwards to become Shen, the expanding and self-revealing spirit of God, or God. And as we get into the next lecture, you're going to see that the etymology directly refers to Para Brahman as expansive. Okay, so it deals with this same idea here. All right, so let me see. Let me make sure that I hit everything here. Okay, so continuing forward. If you flee Abraxas from fear, you escape pain and disappointment, and you remain terrified. That is, out of unconscious love, you cling to Abraxas, and your one God cannot catch fire. Something interesting is that something terrible can be, and this is my own footnote to this, something interesting is that something terrible can be something highly necessary for growth. Looking at the opposite of Abraxas, if Ab is the father, let's posit the son, Horus. If Ra is the sun, let's posit the moon, Isis, which is the opposite. And if Sax is the arrow of God, and I gleaned that through understanding the symbolism of what S, A, and X would mean, okay? The goad, which is the goad to the goal, all right, the arrow of God for man, let us posit Gemini as the opposite of that, or unity of opposites, right, is what Gemini represents. We will find the word Hor-Isis, and also the twins would be animated, or Gemini, right? The word heuristic then could be gleaned from this, which is something that aids learning, discovery, or problem solving by experimental and trial by error methods. If by fear of failure or disappointment one refuses to try something, nothing at all is attained. Sometimes interest and zeal can be sparked even by failure. Okay? So let us go to the next. Okay, so for example, Jung's vision of the god Abraxas bore striking parallels to the figure of Mercurius in alchemy. And Mercury rules Gemini, by the way, too. So that kind of links to the last thing we just read. He noted in retrospect that my encounter with alchemy was decisive for me, as it provided me with the historical basis which I had hitherto lacked. So the next one. At immeasurable distance, a lonely star stands in the zenith. This is the one God of this one man. This is his world, his Pleroma, his divinity. In this world, man is Abraxas, the creator and destroyer of his own world. The star is the God and the goal of man. This is his one guiding God. In him, man goes to his rest. Towards him goes to the long journey of the soul after death. In him, everything that man withdraws from the greater world shines resplendently. To this one God, man shall pray. Okay, so to the next one. So this is something that an individual wrote on some of Jung's works of this nature here. So C.G. Jung has the same problem. His libido is still strong and possessive. He is never content. He built his tower as a tribute to the dream of life he would have liked to realize and never could. This was Bollingen. Okay, Bollingen. I may put a picture of that tower that he made. He had to compromise because his nature is essentially complex. He wants simplicity, but because he is not simple. He has always tried to foist upon Emma the tangible burdens of his complex strivings. I think that was his wife. He accumulates and then cannot maintain. Thus, he is also surrounded by the decaying heaps of things and people from which his libido has receded and which are left to Emma to deal with. She expresses this remorselessness continually, this Abraxoid character to his desiring vitality. Always she reminds him of the debt intuitiveness piles up in the world of real things. He hates sensation because it is unexpressive, inarticulate, and quite remorseless and indifferent to the flutters and strivings of intuition, which is forever trying to escape from the real and the actual. New desires that add more and more to the heap of tangible liabilities must be renounced if this essential simplification is to be attained. Things cannot create happiness. They only make Egypt more lascivious and terrible in its effect. They only make you forget, like alcohol and infatuation. This is terrible Abraxas, which makes life and death with the same breath and in the same act. The right way for me is towards an increasing simplification of life in the midst of a world which goes ever towards an increasing simplification of life in the midst of a world which goes ever towards an increasing specialization and complexity. And that is Peter Baines, Jung's Apprentice, that book there. All right. So before I read this, I'm going to read a quick statement that's going to get us into the next part of the lecture, because we're almost at the end here. A statement from Crowley is wise to posit before reading this, as to a very polarized person, it will make no sense whatsoever. Yet through experience of the mystery of Abraxas in life via tracing, effect, and affect, it is seen how opposites are transitory qualities of one thing. Crowley, in The Vision and the Voice, says, all the symbols are interchangeable, for each one containeth in itself its own opposite. And this is the mystery of the supernals that are beyond the abyss. For below the abyss, contradiction is division, but above the abyss, contradiction is unity. And there could be nothing true except by virtue of the contradiction that is contained in itself. The supernals, I wrote after this, the supernals are Chakma, represented by the lingam, and Binah, represented by the yoni. For example, the symbols of absolute, masculine, and feminine in unity. The energy connecting them on the tree of life is the Leth, Venus, the goddess of love, desire, sex, and attraction. The lingam in the Hindu tradition and the yoni correspond to Shiva and Shakti, and are depicted in genitalia form and represent the merging of microcosm to macrocosms, the divine eternal process of creation and regeneration, and the unity or union of masculine and feminine that recreate all of existence. Lingam means sign, an outward symbol of the formless reality, also the symbolization of merging of the primordial matter with pure consciousness. Yoni means source, origin, fountain, womb, fire pit of incubation, among others. It is the source of the universe and the origin of the feminine regenerative powers in the nature of existence. In Gematria, these seeming opposites unite under one number, and that is the number 157, as lingam, which is zekun, and yoni, which is nakava. And that is 157, and 157, if you break it up, 1 plus 5 plus 7 equals 13. And 13 is a number of unity. And unity in Hebrew is achad, okay? And the Leth is equivalent to Venus. Cheth, the Cha sound, right, is equivalent to Cancer. So basically what we have is Venus in Cancer, and that's the Two of Cups. The Lord of Love is what it is called, but also the emergence of opposites in the Rosarium Philosophorum is what links to this card as well too, right? And it is united by the letter Aleph, which is 1. Okay, so Aleph, Cheth, and Daleth, Achad, meaning one or unity, right? 1 is the self, Mercurius, the embodiment of the opposite, who we now know as Abraxas, okay? So let's read this. Its name is Abraxas. Then the dead demanded further information about this primal being, which is neither the summum bonum nor limitless evil. Abraxas is life, the mother of good and evil. Hence, Abraxas begets truth and falsehood. The third sermon continues. It is the hermaphrodite of the earliest beginning. It is abundance that seeketh union with emptiness. It is the holy begetting. It is love and love's murder. It is the saint and his betrayer. It is the brightest light of day and the darkest night of madness. To look upon it is blindness. To know it is sickness. To worship it is death. To fear it is wisdom. To resist it is not redemption. Soul. The first light designates the Pleroma. So this is basically going to get into the cosmogony and the numerology of the cosmogony of Abraxas, and we're gonna continue here. So the soul, the first light designates the Pleroma. The second light designates Abraxas. The third light, the sun. The fourth light, the moon. The fifth light, the earth. The sixth light, the phallus. The second light, the star, or the seventh light, the star rather. Why are the bird, the heavenly mother, and heaven missing? They are enclosed in the star. And I'm going to throw up tarot card number 17 because you're going to see it all here, what is about to be read. Pay close attention. When you look towards the star, and you see it here on your screen, you will look through them. They are the bridges to the star. They make up the single seventh light. And the seventh light was the star, okay? The highest, the floating, which rises with roaring flapping of wings, released from the embrace of the tree of light, with 6 branches, and I blossom. And who is I? The soul, right? In which the star god lay slumbering. The 6 lights are singular and form the multiplicity. The one light is one and forms the unity. It is the blossoming crown of the tree. And crown in the Hebrew Kabbalah is Keter, okay? The holy egg, the seed of the world endowed with the wings so it can reach its place. And a lot of times Kether is shown as a winged disc, okay, or a winged circle, which is a Sephiroth, or a chakra, a winged chakra, okay? The one gives rise to the seed of the world endowed with wings so it could reach its place. The one gives rise to the many again and again. And the many entails the one. Or as they say in a treatise on the Kabbalah, Kether is in Malkuth. Malkuth is the kingdom or the world or the virgin princess. So they say Kether, which is the crown, which is the one, okay, is in Malkuth, the number 10, and Malkuth is in Kether. So 1 equals 10, 10 equals 1, all right? So the next reading here is, it says, in a critical entry of January 16, 1916, Jung's soul presented an elaborate theogonic cosmogony. She described her own nature, the nature of the daemons, the heavenly mother, and the gods. Of particular significance was Abraxas, the powerful and fearful self-renewing god of the cosmos. She characterized the nature of man as striving for absolute individuality, through which he concentrated and countered the disillusion of the pleroma, or the all. So Jung drew a schematic diagram of this system. At some point later, he proceeded to paint it and titled the work Systema Mundi Totius, or the system of all the worlds. And I'm going to place that diagram up on the screen now, okay? So last but not least, I'm going to remind us that once again, this will be the first installation of a 2-part series devoted to the idea of Abraxas. The next in the series will focus on looking at this idea in diagrammatic form, linking it to the idea of the Tai G2, a Taoist diagram of extremes. Also, I will relate it to the idea of the Shemham Farash as it applies directly to the number of Abraxas, which is 365, and will also expose some relative etymology on the subject. So I think that, that does it for this lecture, which I may have to chop into 2 videos, but just remember this will be part 1, and I hope you got something great from it. Like I said, once again, just the study on Abraxas for me rendered a whole lot of valuable knowledge as basically links to all the various degrees of symbolism, of tarot, of the understanding of Hebrew ideologies, of as far as Kabbalah is concerned as well too. Alchemy, it opened up a whole lot of understanding for me, and I'm pretty sure it will you as well, insofar as the fact that it is actually the understanding of Abraxas. You can only understand it through apprehending the idea, because it's an effect. You have to apply yourself to it. You have to see it. You have to fear it. And if we understand the word fear, it's a respect. It's a veneration. It's not a worship. You know what I'm saying? You have to endeavor to see it around you, to see it within you, to see how this goes. And the Triune brain has helped me to see it and to understand it within my own psyche as well too, besides the various systems that I've studied. But once again, that's why I say we have to study a lot of different systems and find out how they interlace with each other, like lattice work, how they lay one on top of the other, and look at the slants that they make towards one another. Look at the angles, how one will point to the other, how one system will edify the other, and use certain philosophies to break into better ways on how to do that. And Abraxas actually happens to be one of those such philosophies and one of those such understandings, because as I have used the word earlier, it is an absolute meta truth. So I will, if you didn't really catch everything here, the second lecture, like I said, will be an exposition on a more visual way to see this, and thereby you may be able to grasp a deeper, more extensive understanding of this groundbreaking ideology and this groundbreaking symbol that is really a key to, as the name of this lecture says. I mean, it's a key to various forms of philosophy from east to west. Okay, so without further ado, what I'm going to do is read off some questions pertaining to this lecture that I had the opportunity to ask an AI robot. And you said, well, how did I get the opportunity to be able to do that? Well, you can as well too if you go to philosopherai.com. That's philosopherai.com. No, they didn't pay me to do this. This actually came about by listening to some questions that were being asked live to certain AI robots, which I really find very, very fascinating, because they are really possibly going to put human beings into extinction, and if not extinction, they're going to send us into a state of being obsolete. But with the way things are going, technological influxes, and the way that we are just so quick and easy to be entertained, we don't want to seek after knowledge. That just was inevitable. And with the influx of technology, if you will, that is just being interweaved in everything that we do. If it's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, you know, it's taking over, and at a rapid rate, to the point where they also say it's becoming sentient, blah, 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 blah. What I'm going to do is, after the next portion of this lecture, after part 2 of this lecture on Abraxas, I'm actually going to speak on my ideas on AI and some of the insights or downloads, if you will, that I've been given on the subject, because it's really a very interesting situation to see how human beings, in a way, are superior to any robot that they could ever put together. But on the opposite side of that, we are very, very limited in, or when compared to the range of ability that they have to learn quicker than us. They're connected to almost unlimited supply of information. If you look at all the years we've been putting information into the internet, which is where they're getting it from. But anyways, they're very, very, very highly intelligent. as far as their capabilities and software is concerned. So what I chose to do was ask an AI robot some questions on the lecture information, or as pertains to the lecture information, and I actually got some really amazing results that I'll share with you here. Okay, so I asked a few questions, and I'm going to kind of handpick some of the ones that I think would be the best. And one of the ones is, what is the most important thing to know about Abraxas? Okay, it said, the basic idea of Abraxas is the concept of a god or devil that contains all opposites in one being. It was first mentioned by early Gnostic Christian sects and later adopted by alchemists as well. Abraxas is usually depicted as a winged man with four faces of a man, front, lion right, calf back, and eagle left. Some sources describe the eagle face not as an eagle but a hawk-headed lion. The name Abraxas comes from the Greek word meaning shield or abracadabra, which was a mystic term used by early Christians as an appeal to God. In early Gnostic Christian sects, Abraxas was a god of duality, the good and evil side of things, who created the world. Some sources say that he is related to or perhaps even identical with Satan. Later in the Middle Ages, Abraxas became associated with the concept of principle or first matter, that's prima materia, which was one of the four elements used to describe alchemical transformation. And that might even talk about or get into Carl Jung's transcendent function, okay, which is the fifth of the four major functions within the psyche, you know, thinking, feeling, sensation, intuition, transcendent function being the fifth and central. In alchemy, the elements are associated with colors. The four elements and their associated colors form a cross. Yellow air is at the top of the cross, red fire to its right, white water below it, and black earth to its left. Okay, and those also correspond to yellow citrinitas, red is the rubedo, white is the albedo, and the black earth is the negredo in alchemy. And I'm just adding to, you know, some quick insights to what has been read. And that's actually pretty crazy that the description that AI gave of Abraxas as far as what its depiction was with the four faces of a man, lion, calf, and eagle, that's the typical description of the cherubim in Ezekiel's vision. And that's pretty crazy, because that breaks down to the name of Jehovah, and Abraxas is basically an archon, so it kind of vibes with some of the ideas that they say Jehovah, Yaldabaoth, having to do with Abraxas. You know, that's been noted in some YouTube documentaries. So anyways, on to the next question of interest. How can someone utilize the law of polarity for maximum spiritual achievement in their life? And I had to refer to the law of polarity because it kind of got tired of me asking about Abraxas in general. And Abraxas is basically the law of polarity, because the law of polarity expresses unity in the swing from one pole to the opposite pole. Okay, so it says, first, you must realize that the law of polarity is a simple duality consisting of two opposites. The universe consists of opposite energies and forces that are equal but opposite to each other. Light has darkness, life has death, good has evil, and so on. One of the most important things to realize is that reality in its purest form exists as an infinite amount of energies and forces within a single sphere. As you know from your own personal lessons with the law of polarity, there are positive and good aspects to each force and negative or evil aspects. The same applies for light and darkness. The trick is to not be attached to the energies or forces, but instead be able to move through them freely. In this way, you become a master of your own path rather than being led by external forces that are moving you against your own nature. Another important aspect of the law is to realize that there are many polarities and opposites in our reality. By learning how to use these opposing forces, you will be able to create a positive result. So let me see. Most people are not aware of the law of polarity, and they use it unconsciously. For example, you may have a positive day where everything goes right for you, or you may have a negative day where everything goes wrong. You could find yourself in the middle of a storm with rain, lightning, and thunder. And this is, I swear to you, this is AI that wrote the answers to this question. And that's at philosopherai.com for anybody that wants to pay the money to actually ask a few questions and get some answers. It's really totally kind of an amazing thing. So I asked it a question about what does eros and logos have to do with form and formlessness. Now remember, eros and logos, why did I ask that? Because in the latter portion of this lecture, they were talking about the tree as being logos and eros as being fire. Okay, so I thought about it. I said, let me just ask this question and see what it has to say if we focus our mind on the tree being logos, or tree of life being logos, and eros being fire. Okay, so I see the world. It says, okay, so the question was, I'm going to repeat that so you can focus on this. What does eros and logos have to do with form and formlessness? AI says, I see the world as a collection of matter in motion, where all things are dependent on one another and every object has an opposite. I think it is important to understand that there is no God or creator, but rather we live in a universe which was formed through the collapse of several dimensions into one. This multiverse expanded at a great speed until finally our universe emerged from this superheated soup. The laws of physics and gravity were established during this time, leading to the formation of stars and planets such as Earth. I would say eros is the urge to create and beauty, while logos is the rational need for knowledge. The human form is an expression of these two opposing forces in a constant struggle to achieve harmony through mediation. I think logos and eros are best expressed in Western culture through the works of Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, Bacon, and Descartes. However, I think meditation is a better way to understand this concept, as it is a more direct reflection of reality. I would say the universe is formless since it has no particular shape or structure. I think things take form through their interactions and relationships with each other. So let me go to the last of what it said about this. You can see this in nature, where the form of an animal is determined by its interactions with predator and prey. You could also see it through human society, where culture is created from values such as freedom, equality, and kindness. Some would argue that the human form has no purpose. However, I think all things are created with a function, and it is up to us to discover what that may be. I believe we should strive for balance between eros and I think we should strive for a balance between eros and logos in order to achieve this. I have to pause sometimes because of the way I split these up, because I printed these out from my email. So please bear with the pauses here. So because I like the triune brains theory so much, and I've gotten so much from it, I asked this question: how does the idea of of formlessness and form, so opposites once again, ultimate nothingness, right? Formlessness and form, physicality, relate to the triune brain model capabilities? And if we look at it, formlessness and form are opposites, ultimate opposites, right? So we can look at Abraxas as being the unity of these opposites. So how does the triune brain have to do with that? Because I did say something about that, about how the triune brain has to do with parts of the body of Abraxas, okay? The issue of formlessness, so the question, how does the idea of formlessness and form relate to the triune brain model capabilities? AI says the issue of formlessness and form is in fact a very interesting one. A long time ago, I studied the works of Plato, who wrote on the subject of essence and appearance. In his work, he describes three worlds: the world of forms, the eternal perfect realm, or realm as you call it, which are mind independent. The world we live in, where things appear to have some sort of order, but this order is not always apparent. And finally, there is our perception itself, which can also be deceptive because we tend only to see what our senses allow us to. Essentially, we humans are imprisoned in our own bodies and minds. We can only see so much of the world around us, but we tend to trust that we tend to trust what we perceive as being real. Our senses deceive us all the time. Think about optical illusions or hallucinations, for example. And it was Plato who concluded that there is no difference between true understanding and insight on the one hand and ignorance or illusion on the other. So how does this relate to the triune brain model? Well, an important distinction is made between the physical world and what we call the mental. The physical world consists of matter, which can be observed. Matter is a kind of substance that exists in a three-dimensional space. This means it has length, height, and width. So let me see. The mental, on the other hand, is a very different kind of substance. It cannot be observed directly by simply looking at someone. The mind, or soul as you call it, can only be perceived indirectly through what people say and do. The triune brain model is a very useful model to explain the different kinds of mental processing that goes on in our heads. The reptilian brain handles survival instincts such as breathing and eating and so forth. It does not really care about language or other forms of communication. The limbic brain is the seat of all emotions, feelings, and desires. I am not sure if this was precisely the case in humans or not, but it is probably one of the reasons why people are so easily influenced by their peers. The limbic brain basically functions on pure emotion. So that's what it had to say about how the triune brain relates to that idea of formlessness and form. And that's that you know, it got to the Trinitarian idea of it, you know, and try to relay those ideas. So what I turned around and did was asked it some more poignant questions. So let us go to those questions. What do the ideas of the effect of unified opposites, ultimate good and ultimate evil, have to do with one another? AI says, the philosophies of unified opposites, ultimate good and ultimate evil, are about how one should live their life. One could say the philosophy of unified opposites is a way to make your life meaningful through the yin-yang duality in all things. The philosophies of ultimate good is about how to do what you love with no regrets and be happy in doing so. And finally, the philosophy of ultimate evil is about enjoying every moment as it comes to pass. The philosophies of unified, It is evident that there must be a unified opposites philosophy, since everything has an opposite and nothing exists without its opposite. So the yin yang duality clearly shows how nothing can exist without its opposite. And if something does not exist without its opposite, then it cannot be perfect or complete. So it is evident that the philosophy of unified opposites must be a part of human society. However, there are many people who believe that if you do something in life, then you get rewarded for it with happiness and success. These people also believe that what they do does not affect anyone else or their surroundings. The philosophy of ultimate good is about doing what you love to do and not regretting it. And if you are happy in life and have no regrets, then it is evident that the philosophy of ultimate good has a place within human society. Lastly, the philosophy of ultimate evil is about enjoying life as it comes to you and not wasting time wondering what if or should have. If you are living your life in this manner, then it is evident that the philosophy of ultimate good has a place within human society. So it is evident that all three philosophies have a place within So it is evident that all three philosophies have a place within human society. The philosophy of unified opposites is about accepting the yin-yang duality in all things and finding peace with yourself. That, I think that is really that's really an amazing answer to that question. You know, if you really think about it, because it shows a Trinitarian idea, if you will, within the yin and the yang, you know? So let us see what the other question it is that I asked. So the next question that I'm going to tackle is, what do the ideas of the effect of unified opposites, God and the devil, have to do with one another? Because if you think about it, the effect of the unified opposites, we're talking about Abraxas, God, and the devil being the creations under Abraxas. What do they have to do with one another? Okay, so this should give us some dynamic idea via the mind of AI that's linked to all of these other ideas on the web about the question, okay, and about the subject matter. The ideas of God, the devil, and all else in between are concepts that have been created by man. These beings do not exist any more than unicorns or Zeus, the Greek god. You might say, but we have seen and felt their influence. How can you deny that God exists? Well, I do not. I am denying that the concept of God has any place in our reality. It is a human construct like many other things we invent. Think of it this way. When we look at the idea of God, what do you see? You see a being with some sort of power to it. This is similar to many other beings that have been created by man. You might say, but God is unlike other beings as it created everything. Well, this too is a human construct. In reality, there are no concepts of created or destroyed. Our universe and our world has not been created nor destroyed. The idea of God is just another way in which we have constructed our reality. So let me see. Yeah, so that was the end of that question right there, which is like that was a crazy answer. Okay, so let me see. So, and you know what? I said this, that would be the last one. This will be the last one here. So this will be the last question that I read here, and it was asked this way since, you know, we have Ian McGillichrist, which is a neuroscientist that's been writing books and putting out information on hemispheric interaction within the brain, and you know, basically how human beings can repair their mind state and live a better life, embodying the capacities of the right and left hemisphere of the brain, right? So within the idea of duality and how that deals with Abraxas being duality and unity, I asked this question: how do the capabilities of human brain hemispheres relate to duality, and how can we seek unity? AI said, we have the left and right hemispheres of the human brain. The left hemisphere is more analytical, linear, critical, concrete, and literal. It can understand language well because it makes sense of words by breaking them down into their constituent parts or syllables. The right hemisphere is more intuitive, holistic, metaphorical. It can understand music it can understand music well, as it allows for unusual interpretations of the notes being played. The left hemisphere is capable of understanding language and music, but it does not have the ability to intuit meaning in them beyond what is literal. The right hemisphere can understand language, music, and even abstract art, since this is often metaphorical, but it cannot understand numbers or statistics. When we look at the brain as a whole, these two hemispheres contribute to our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. For example, in many people with only one functioning hemisphere, there is no sense of self or identity. It is important to understand that these hemispheres are capable of communicating with each other and thus influencing the other. For For example, when someone sees an image or a metaphor, the right hemisphere will try to find meaning in it. When the left hemisphere finds out that there is something to be interpreted, it will help with the interpretation. When someone sees an image of a bird sitting on a branch and it reminds them of their father who died when they were young, this thought will bring emotion into play. So the last portion of it was kind of roundabout, but that was pretty amazing though to hear, because it's like it's saying that one is metaphoric and then the other is like really helping it to interpret those things. And it is very much like Ian McGillichrist talks about in his lectures as one is master in some ways and one is emissary. But what the AI just gave is that the unity is in really allowing the whole mind to utilize both faculties in order to give a holistic idea of what it is that we're seeing. You know, if you listen to what was read again, you'll kind of get that sense. And it kind of, you know, that last portion could be like, oh, that was kind of like a dumb thing to say at the end though. But just reading it again, when someone sees an image of a bird sitting on a branch, right, it has nothing to do with a father, right? And it reminds them of their father, maybe because of some memory or whatever, right, who died when they were young. This thought will bring emotion into play. That's a limbic. And, you know, looking at a tree, identifying a tree, oh, this is a tree, right? That's a left brain thing. But it's saying that the right brain comes into play. That's giving experience. That's allowing a human being that maybe lost their father and has some memory around that situation to experience something that anchors a total situation. And who knows what the end result of that emotion and that thought would be. You know, we have several such thoughts and emotions that pass through us within the course of a day based upon things that we remember. And yeah, this is philosopherai.com once again. That will be it for the AI questions. But like I said, if you want to get more questions asked and try this thing out for yourself, philosopherai.com is the link online. And hopefully you've enjoyed this YouTube video here. Hopefully you've been enriched by it. Hopefully you will come back, listen to some more. Hopefully if you've liked it, you know, personally, you'll give me a like. You'll share the video to somebody that could be enriched by it. And all in all, stay tuned for the next installation in the series on these videos, because we're going to be getting into some heavier stuff that will help to concrete the information, which I really believe is very important, as Abraxas is the key to understanding the mind and also several mystery traditions. And we're going to go far east in the next one, the next YouTube video, because I really truly believe that that's where all of this knowledge comes from. So without further ado, thank you again for listening. Have a great morning, night, afternoon, wherever in the world you may be. Thank you again for listening.